Hello, hello, everyone. It is Monday, so you know what time it is. It's time for some Futbol Americas. Alexis Nunes here alongside my crew of Hercules Gomez and Ale Moreno, looking very cash, very suave, very ready for a Monday.
You gonna cut it like ranch after this?
Just because of my Canadian, was it a Canadian tuxedo?
Don't be modest. Show them what you're working with. Break out the kicks.
Guys,
Break out the
no.
kicks.
No, we're not going to show the kicks today. You know I'm big on kicks, but I'm going to show you I'm in my Uggs. Oh, it's comfy Mondays, guys. We work hard on the weekend, so Mondays we're going to take it easy. But I'll tell you who's not taking it easy all the way to the bank. Lionel Messi, Mans is cashing in.
Oh, he's taking it very easy.
He's taking it very easy, and he probably can for the rest of his life. We're going to tell you exactly how much he is making a year, thanks to Inter Miami later on. Plus, some ugly scenes in South America, Ale. Not in Venezuela, but in Brazil. Is it good old South American football, or should we be worried? We're going to talk about that too. Plus, Haji Wright, Flo Balogun cannot stop scoring. But first, we do start speaking about the U.S. men's national team, specifically about Mauricio Pochettino, because according to ESPN sources, Pochettino is on Real Madrid's short list of options to become manager next season. Now, Alvaro Arbeloa, we know, is currently the interim manager after Madrid parted ways with Xabi Alonso earlier this year. Now, it's not the first time that Poch has even been linked with the Spanish club. He was actually linked with a move back there in 2019 after he had that big run with Tottenham to the Champions League final. Now, Pochettino's future with the USA past the World Cup has been a topic of debate. We've talked about it a number of times here on this show. But let me just say that being linked to Real Madrid is not something I had on my bingo card. So initial reactions when you saw this news, Herc?
I'm stunned. I really am. As many, I did not have this on my bingo card. Mauricio Pochettino, I did not think would parlay his very brief success of 5 games undefeated with the U.S. men's national team to catapult himself into the platform of a Real Madrid. That's not really how it works. Back when he had a run with Tottenham Hotspur, and they were runners-up in the Champions League, and he was one of the hottest coaches around, that made sense. After a failed stint with PSG, in where there were many reports, even our own Julian Laurent reporting that he had issues managing a locker room like PSG, where they had a very embarrassing loss of League One at the hands of Lille, where they had a very embarrassing exit, where they were up by 2 goals and had Karim Benzema in 17 minutes turn around with a hat-trick, bounced him from the Champions League, and he was fired. After those reports, it would have been less likely. Then he goes to Chelsea. And at one point had Chelsea, 12th in the Premier League, had a very good second half of the season. But every big game that came his way, Chelsea would lose. And that's sort of been the mantra. So when you look at who Mauricio Pochettino has been in his club career, which is not a serial winner, which is quite the opposite, to think that he can get on the platform or in the orbit of a Real Madrid is quite shocking for me, especially when you think of how he exited Chelsea and the reports of he was clashing with the sporting director because of control. Well, I'll tell you what. You go to Real Madrid, you're going to have zero control. Florentino's going to run the show. You go to Real Madrid, you better know how to run a locker room with stars. At PSG, he proved that wasn't the case. He's a project manager. He's not a results manager. So this, to me, was very, very interesting. And then the rest of it, when it comes to the U.S. men's national team, at no point in time did it cross my mind he's leaving the U.S. men's national team for Real Madrid. It was pretty much more the shock factor of, wow, he's in that conversation.
Yeah, Ale, how did you take this news?
Well, anytime that reports like this come out and the sources are ESPN sources or that source or that source, but it's not specific, it makes you wonder who's actually putting out this information? Who's putting this out into the media? Usually when Real Madrid is involved and they're not happy with the current situation, it's actually coming from inside the club. But they just put this guy in charge, quote unquote, Arbeloa. He's essentially a substitute teacher. That's the way that I've described it in the past, and I'll continue to describe that. He's a substitute teacher. He's hanging on as it is. But regardless, that's a guy that was handpicked.
Yeah.
And just a month later, we're now putting out reports again that there are rumors about this guy, or that guy. So let's assume that it's not Real Madrid that is putting out these reports, that is leaking this information out to the media. Then who's the other option? Was the Pochettino camp.
Of course.
And his surrounding group of friends and people and whoever may have some sort of influence and access that then sort of leaks this, oh, there's maybe interest from Real Madrid. And what it does is it puts Pochettino's name out in the news and is linking him to one of the most important, most significant jobs in club football. I don't think this is coming from Real Madrid just yet. I don't have proof. It's merely me reading the situation. So if it's not coming from Real Madrid, then where does this sort of random reports that stun you and stun Hercules come from? Well, the only person who actually has interest in this happening would be Pochettino and Pochettino's camp. No, I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm just saying that this thing just come out of the ether. They don't just come magically. They appear. Mm-hmm. If it is based upon performance of his teams, to Hercules' point, then he would not be in the conversation. Now, here's another thing to talk about and another angle to take on this conversation. Let's assume that Arbeloa does crash and burn quicker than they expect. And that means, hey, Manchester City comes around in Champions League over the next couple of weeks, and that doesn't quite work out for Real Madrid. And let's say they continue to play as poorly as they have in La Liga over the last few weeks. And they are sort of barely hanging on to the race with Barcelona, and all of that falls apart. And so now you are Real Madrid, and you have to make a decision, and you know, as we all know, that Arbeloa is not long-term the solution. Are you then going to Pochettino, if indeed this is all true, are you then going to Pochettino and say, well, but we're going to need you to be around here sooner than later?
Oh, yeah.
We're not waiting for you for the World Cup. And does this then become a Julian Lopetegui situation in which he was coaching Spain, world champion, Spain, World Cup champion, European champion, World Cup champion, Spain. And he put them to the side to go and take the job of Real Madrid. If Real Madrid, say, tomorrow goes and knocks on the door of Mauricio Pochettino, does he stick around for the World Cup or does he go to Real Madrid? I'm only going down the path of the same conversation that they're trying to create. This is not speculation, it's simply asking the question. If we're to believe that Pochettino is indeed at top of the list of Real Madrid, and they know that he's with the United States men's national team, but they need him, and they need him sooner rather than later, is he leaving the United States men's national team to go and coach Real Madrid? I'll ask the U.S. international Hercules Gomez.
You know, Ali brings up a very good point. I don't know if I'd correlate it with Real Madrid because worst case scenario for Real Madrid, they lose the league, they're out of it, they're not going anywhere, they're not getting relegated. Champions League is not a viable option. They're out of Copa del Rey.
Don't tell Flore that.
It's a nada plete. There's nothing else. They don't need Pochettino before that. But if you're Spurs, and this is the prodigal son.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's the same scenario Ali's planting. It really is.
Yeah.
And that's a more realistic scenario. I do not know. I do not know. And Lopetegui and the Spanish Federation had their own trust issues. I have to assume that Matt Crocker and the powers that be at U.S. Soccer have full trust. And there is transparency between the two camps. And they know he is not leaving right now. I have to assume that Mauricio Pochettino, to squash all these rumors, all these reports, will just come out and say, I'm not going anywhere. This is where I'm going to be, and we will talk about what comes next after the World Cup. I have to assume a good coach, a good person would do that.
But he has had ample opportunity.
I was going to say, we've asked for this.
Because his name has been out.
With everyone from Manchester United to now Real Madrid, Spurs.
Are all these teams putting out his name?
I'm with you there. Yes.
Are all these names, are all these clubs leaking his name? See, if the constant name that gets thrown out there with multiple clubs is Mauricio Pochettino,
common denominator.
He is the common denominator, then he has to be coming from somewhere around him.
Right. Can we pull the curtain back for a second, Ali, and explain to people why that would happen? It's to create the leverage for himself.
Yeah.
That these things don't come out of thin air. What Ali's saying is not something that's crazy. This is what they do.
Excuse me. I didn't think that needed explanation, but
no, because there could be people out there, you don't know. That's how these things work.
Well, if
Managers camps, they want to create leverage. Reps, they want to create leverage for their clients.
But he's had ample opportunity, and he has
Yeah.
not done it. He has not taken the chance to say, listen, US of A, baby. America. I'm here for America. Huh? He hasn't yet said that out loud. And I don't know whether we need to hear that from him, but the more his name is out in the news with every other job except the United States men's national team, and there's a World Cup coming up, I may want to hear, if I'm an American fan, I may want to hear, my heart is here.
Yeah.
My soul is here with this team. I'm all about the United States and the World Cup, and we'll talk about my future after the World Cup is over, as Hercules was just talking about. But he hasn't said that, and all it takes is 30 seconds of a soundbite. Put it out on social media. That's all it would take, and yet he hasn't done it. And the longer this goes on, the more speculation comes about.
You know what, Ale? You got to keep your options open. You just got to
I
keep your options open in this big world, you know?
I don't know what you're talking
I'm
about.
just saying. But
Just took a
anyways,
turn.
regardless of this and regardless of what we have been thinking and how surprised we were with this link, there's a lot more details on our article over on ESPN.com. But according to our ESPN sources, is that Florentino Perez doesn't really care about what he has or has not achieved with the other clubs. He is just a fan of Mauricio Pochettino or with the U.S. at the moment. He's just a fan of Mauricio Pochettino and how he conducts himself. So do you think eventually he could be a good fit for Real Madrid? What do you think, Flores? I'm asking you a tough question to get into Flores' mind here, but what do you think he could like in Pochettino from what we have seen in his managerial career?
I don't know in what state of mind Florentino Perez is in if he's thinking this is a good fit, and I'll explain myself. He just saw Xabi Alonso come in and try to manage this group of players.
A legend at the club, too.
Very big profile, successful manager, briefly, but successful manager, and could not manage, could not deal with the players in that squad. Something that Pochettino has had an issue with, a reported issue with players like Neymar, with players like Mbappe, who, by the way, is at Real Madrid, with players like Messi. He himself has stated Messi got angry when he took him out. He came and spoke to him and then laughed about it. Maybe I shouldn't have taken him out. He's seen what it's like to not have a manager who is respected at that club, as right now with Arbeloa, as he had with Xabi Alonso. And he wants to go back to the same type of well. Real Madrid is for winners.